minutes from now.
That was fun. You ready? All right. Good afternoon, everybody. As you know, I'm Charles Graves, political science major, leadership studies minor, as I said, from Baltimore. And I did my senior thesis on third parties and independent candidates for governor and senate within the last 20 years, from 1990 to 2010. What I did is I realized, starting out, that there are so many more independent voters, people who say in polls and are registered as unaffiliated or independent or whatever it is in different states, versus the number of politicians who are actually elected statewide or to other positions who are not members of any political party. And so I wanted to investigate why that is the case. And what I did is, in order to narrow the scope a little bit, what I did is I looked at the candidates only for governor and senate for a number of reasons, and only those within the last 20 years who got more than 10% of the vote. I looked this up. In the last 20 years, there have been a total of 600 elections, roughly 600 elections for governor and senate. 46 of those had a third-party candidate get more than 10% of the vote. That's roughly 7% of the time. Of those 46 who got above 10%, 19% of those, or 9 of them total, actually won their elections. And so, as a third party or an independent, once you get up to 10%, you've really gone a great distance of the way. The main part of my research was to study whether third parties, which is, say, the Green Party, Libertarian Party, Independence Party in some states, any party that's not Democrat or Republican, does better than independent candidates, which is those with no party affiliation at all, including write-in candidates. In order to study this, I used, as my theoretical framework, Duverger's law. You've probably never heard of it before, but Duverger's law states that a single ballot majority vote system, which is what we have in our elections generally in the United States, they favor a party dualism, a two-party system, whereas a multi-ballot or a double ballot plurality vote system, which is what they have in Germany, Australia, and other countries like that, or instant runoff voting, which is a system similar, they favor multipartism, and all of those countries have more than 2 major political parties. And so basically the idea of this research is to see whether independents or third parties do better at avoiding the hazards of Duverger's law, which says that they will have a lot of trouble to defeat the two-party system. My research consisted of collecting statistics from the state secretaries of state and the Federal Election Commission regarding 4 categories. Those categories were ideology, plausibility, finance, and name recognition. Those included, say, how much money was spent, how much money was brought in by each campaign, the size of the states, the ideology of the state, whether it was a red or blue state, the gender of the candidate, the race of the candidate, whether they had held office before, what party they held office before, as a member of, and a number of other statistics, taking the averages of those, mean, median, and mode, and doing what maybe you haven't heard of since either psych stats or sociology stats. I did a ANOVA calculation, analysis of variance, and a linear regression calculation to see what kind of correlation existed specifically in how much of the vote they got, whether third parties got a larger percentage of the vote than independents, whether independents or third parties spent a larger amount of money per congressional district to account for the difference in size of the state than the other group, and whether there was a correlation between those two factors, between the finance and the percentage of the vote. What I found out was that there is, first of all, no strong correlation between the two parties between the two groups in terms of how much of the vote they received. It evens out. About 20% is the average, just for those who got above 20% of the vote. Those who got above 10% of the vote average out to 20%, and those who got, and that was equal for both. The amount of money that they spent per congressional district, it was very, very highly variable between the two, between the whole set, but there was no significant difference between third parties and independents. And interestingly enough, the correlation between finance and the percentage of the vote is such that third parties actually start out with more money, but independents get more money. Get more votes per dollar that they spend, and so it roughly evens out that way. And that was the primary, or those are the primary factors of my research. How am I on time? Am I good? Nice.
Thank you so much.
Questions?
What's your theory?
As I said, my theory was Duverger's law about multipartism being, or many parties being tended to by double ballot plurality vote systems, as opposed to single ballot majority vote systems being trended to, or being sort of suggested by, suggesting dual party dualism.
The theory that you created,
Well,
is it from the survey work, or you did it from other sources? If there are other sources, which one was most interesting?
Oh, thank you. I guess I did not mention that. The theory was created by the French sociologist Maurice Duverger, and he basically theorized that, and he was writing at the time where he wrote at the time of the Cold War, and what he said was, if there's a given election that has, it's a single ballot system as we have in the United States, and there are two moderate candidates, say a Democrat and a Republican, versus a communist candidate, and all three run together in a group where they're in an area where there are 180,000 voters, if and they're equally divided, so 90,000 are moderates and 90,000 are communists. If either of the moderates gets more than I think 20,000 votes, then the communists will automatically win, and so the moderate parties will naturally combine because they have fewer differences between them than themselves and the communists, in order to have a better chance of winning, which creates a two-party system. Or people would leave whichever moderate candidate had the smallest support and go towards the moderate with the largest support, and which is the same way as people leaving third-party candidates for whichever major party candidate they favor over the other, even if they like the moderate party the best. And that was in Duverger's, in his book, I believe it was called Politics and Theory, I believe it was called.
So Charles, what makes your work different from others?
What I noticed in my research, in my literature review, was that no group had studied whether third parties were any different really than independents. Those who